And welcome everybody to the PCS Like a Pro show. I'm Megan Harless, your host, like as always, and I'm very excited for y'all to join us today. So I'll just be upfront with you. If you are watching this is a recorded show because right now my family is in the middle of our PCS, and we are currently, by the time this plays, will be hotel living at our new location, patiently waiting to get the keys into our house and waiting for our household goods to get delivered. If you are in the middle of your PCS or you're expecting a PCS, I'd love for you to just drop into the comments about what your PCS experience is like so far this year. Are things happening on time? Are you having any issues? Are you going to a place you're excited about going? Or are you, like I was when we came to our current location, dragging your feet, kicking and screaming and not looking forward to it? But just drop in the comments, let us know how your PCS is going, because I would love to be able to get some of that feedback and see what everybody else is experiencing as well. So we're going to dive right into our show today. I'm really excited to have time here today with Sherry. If you don't know Sherry, you need to know her. She's a phenomenal person and does so much for our community. So welcome to the show, Sherry. I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here. And I'll be in the middle of hosting family while you're in the middle of your hotel living. But 1 year ago today, I was hotel living. So I totally get you.
Yes. Can you just take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm an Army veteran and a military spouse with decades of experience and still on active duty, moving around. Like I just shared, just moved last summer. And I currently am an author, speaker, and I really work with people with their leadership skills and really personal growth. That's my big thing that I really like to help people with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get the links for Sherry. You have a public Facebook page. Is it your author page or your speaker combined page?
Yes, it's my author ministry page. Yeah.
So we're going to get the link for that, and we're going to drop it into the comments here, so that way you guys will be able to connect with Sherry and be able to follow her and all the good work that she does. So diving right into our topic today about the transition of a PCS and your identity of yourself during this PCS transition. As we walk through the PCS process, in regards to that self-identity and the things that happen, first thing that we know is that we're moving, and it's like we have this period of withdrawal. I always call it like the inevitable withdrawal, where we start like pulling ourselves away from our location. We cancel that first lunch date with one of our friends, or maybe it's a coffee date. We pull back from our volunteer opportunities that we're a part of. And so I feel like this is often like the first stage of that loss of identity process, is because of that withdrawal. So as we begin that PCS transition, how can we do that without that complete loss of who we are and that dissociation of who we are?
Oh, that's a great question. And I love it because it really hits on where I like to help people. Because I think what I do is I help people untangle, because the reason you feel that loss of identity is because you've tangled who you are with what you do. And when we untangle who we are as an individual from what it is that we do, then we're able to navigate these transitions with more clarity, more confidence, and setting healthy boundaries. I mean, you talked about healthy boundaries of when you start to PCS, you have to start, recognizing that you need to give more attention to the next place that you're going, but also, still remaining in the moment. And I think it's an encouragement to find that balance. And that feeling loss of identity is really us going through a grieving process. And it was so eye-opening years ago when somebody talked about, how to like part of the care team. If you've ever served part of a care team, we went through some grief counseling, and they're like, so if you wonder what it's going to look like when you, when you go through a grief process, you can get a small glimpse into the window if you think about your PCS. How do you handle your PCS? Because you might be saying right now, Megan, that you pull away. There are some that just keep going right until the end. It all depends on who we are and how we navigate life and what we're most comfortable with. So, look at yourself. What do you do? Are you the person that will say goodbye, or are you the person who will just go away? Because
Yeah.
I've had friends in my life that's who they were. They just, when
Mm.
they're PCSing, they're just like, they don't even tell anybody. They just kind of totally fade off, and then they're gone. And you're like, wait a minute, where did they go? And so if you're one of those, I just want to encourage you, say your goodbyes, because it means so much to, your friends,
Mhm.
even though it's hard.
Yeah, no, it definitely is hard. And I think you kind of put it in a good terms of that grieving kind of process. It's something that I never really thought about before, but I mean, that's definitely a good term to kind of use for it because we're leaving something that was comfortable and familiar that we know and preparing for what is the unknown and finding that balance. I think that balance is so hard. I think balance in everything is so hard because it always feels like balance is like this tiny little tightrope that we have to walk. It's not like, a 6 foot plank that we have of space and grace period. It always feels like it's this tiny little narrow path. And I think that feels a little scary when we start trying to talk about, finding that balance and what is balance and how do you do that. But yes, I have to agree. If you say goodbye to your friends because you meant something to somebody and that friendship meant something to somebody. And so and it's never really a true goodbye. It's always like a see you later because our military community is it's a big world, but it's such a small community, and we do see each other so many different places down the road and cross paths again. Um, so when we start talking about, with PCS each time, in a way, it's like starting over as a new kid in our community when we get to our new location. At the last location, we might have found our place in our community. We knew what we were volunteering with. How can we find our place in that new community once we arrive?
I really think sometimes not every community is the same, but you know yourself. You know what you enjoy doing the most. So if
Mhm.
you are normally, like you talked about, pulling away from different things, what is it that you volunteer with? What is it? What are your passions centered around? Look for those things even before you get to the next community. Look and see how you can plug into your passion areas, because almost every place will have a spouses club. Almost every place is going to have a fisher's house. Almost every place is going to have a school that is going to need volunteers. So you can look at, okay, what am I passionate about? What keeps me going? And how can I get connected? Because I think the most important piece to transitioning well is not losing who you are in it. And so if you're not getting to a location, waiting for someone to invite you to become part of the community. Rather, you're coming to the community saying, how can I build this community up? And in that, that's how we make our next round of connections, next best friends. And I always joked and said that my kids were the ones who found my best friends when they were little, because we would show up at the school, the parks, different things like that. And just because you're the new person, especially since we're on the other side of this C word thing,
Mhm.
um, we can be the new person on the block can be the one to start the community building in your new location. You can be the one that invites people in. And but if that's not who you are, don't do it. But if it's who you are, do it. But if it's not, find another way to connect, because most people are going, I'm not going to have people over. I'm not going to be the inviter. And that's fine. Know your strength. Be the supporter. If somebody else is doing it, then join in and say, hey, how can I help you with this? I really enjoy, just bringing something behind the scenes and helping out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did the same thing when my kids were little, use them to find my friends. We'd go outside, we'd be playing, they'd go talk to another kid, and it'd be an easy of like, oh, I'm his mom or I'm her mom. And suddenly you have a friend that lives, 2 houses down for you. Now my kids are older and now they're just like, please don't come hang outside with us. Like, can you just stay inside? Like, you're embarrassing, mom. Don't do it. I'm just like, but I need a friend too. Like, let me come meet your friends. So different seasons of life that we are now trying to navigate. So when we make that transition from one place to the next, sometimes we can often feel like we're inadequate for whatever that next opportunity is, whether it's volunteering at the school, starting something new, whatever it may be. So how can we get over this feeling and realize that we are a qualified and capable person of handling whatever that position is, whether it's volunteering somewhere or in the FRG organization or as spouse club? Do you have any tips for how we can kind of get over that hurdle of feeling that inadequate and not able to do what's being asked of us?
Oh, wow. Feeling inadequate. So if you're feeling inadequate, you might be trying to step into something that is not a strength of yours. So I always encourage people to know what their strengths are and their weaknesses are. So what can you and how you're going, well, how do I know what my strengths are? Well, part of that question is just taking a pause and saying, okay, what is something that somebody said, wow, you're so good at that? Or they've given you a compliment that, wow, I can't believe you did that with such ease. And you're like thinking, that was so easy. What are you talking about? Why are you complimenting me on that? That's just what I do. Okay. So if something just came to your mind, then you go, oh, that's a strength. So those are ways that you want to find different volunteer opportunities that you're going to be able to use that strength, because what you're doing is you're bringing something to the group that they don't have. And to be honest with you, each time we move, we have that hesitation. There's just that natural hesitation. I think it's just built into our human DNA to where we're like, oh, I don't know. Because when you're that first person to walk into the circle or to try to break into the circle, it's just downright intimidating. But we as military spouses have an advantage because we know that when we walk into that room, everybody else has been where we've been at some point. And if you've ever been a part of a committee who you need 10 volunteers, but you have 5 volunteers, you are looking for the next person to come alongside. And if, in all honesty, I think the other thing is being honest, being like, hey, I want to help with this group. I can see that this is a good fit for me. I might need somebody to kind of train me. And don't we love it when people are honest with us? So why are we so hesitant to be honest with others that, hey, I need a little bit of help learning this, but I can do it?
I think part of that for spouses, especially my generation of spouses, where we came up during the back-to-back deployments of Iraq and Afghanistan. We were gone for 12 months, home for 12, PCS, gone for 12. We grew up in this phase of, we can do everything ourselves. We have to learn how to do it ourselves because we were in and out so quickly from one place to the next, and with our spouses here and our spouses gone, that I spoke about this with a couple of my good friends recently about, we struggle sometimes with being able to say no. We struggle sometimes with also being able to say we need help, because we got used to having to do everything ourselves because our spouses were always gone. We were PCSing, and it was a very difficult time for some folks in my generation of spousehood. Do you have any tips for how do we find that balance with no, I can't do that, put that on my plate, and with the I need help with this also, but I don't know how to ask you for help because I should be able to do this by myself kind of mentality?
Well, and that is one of those catchy, contagious thought processes for military spouses, because I grew up with it around me all the time. And I was one of those. I mean, we like to control things because we feel like if we can control things, we're more comfortable, right? And so part of it is a fear of letting go and letting somebody see behind us that, oh gosh, she doesn't, and we're afraid, oh, they're going to look at us and think that we're the weak link. But in reality is, and how I've been talking, you're going to be like, what is this deal with the strengths? But if you know what you're good at, I think the strongest statement that we can say is, can you help me? Because Megan, if I say, hey, I need some help, Do you want to run the other way, or do you want to run to me?
Run to you. And
Exactly.
I'm a big helper too. I want to take care of everybody. I want to nurture everybody. I want to feed everybody. That's, for me, generally my personality and who I am. But I do know some people that gets, when somebody asks for help, they're just like, I don't know how to help. I can't be the one that they need. And sometimes when we are in that moment where we say we need help, we don't necessarily know exactly what it is we need help with. Do I need somebody to just come let me vent to them? Do I need somebody to come bring me a meal? Do I need somebody to help, pick up the zillion toys on the floor because it's overwhelming to me? That sometimes we know we need help, but we can't identify exactly what the help is that we need.
Right. And so we need to shift the way that we think about
Mm-hmm.
that, because when we're willing to ask for somebody to help do something that we're not good at, and we know we're just not good at that, like, oh my goodness, I need some help with some time management. I'm having a hard time with this. Are you good at that? Is that a good thing? Do you do that? But when you ask for, that help, we're shifting it to bringing in community, building
Mm-hmm.
community. Because if, you're good at time management, but I'm good at, prepping meals and cooking and meal planning, then maybe we can, build a group and we can all share what we're best at. But, and sometimes it really is scary, especially when you get to a new place, to ask for help, because then you're like, oh goodness. So guess what? All of the services have places that we can go to get assistance in those
Mm-hmm.
processes of moving. And so, like you said, you're going to be camping. I always say go to ACS whenever you move to someplace new and get linked in with how they can support you and your family, and take advantage of it. Because if we don't use it, we're going to lose those resources. And you might not need extensive resources. And then sometimes, if you just do need to talk to somebody, we have the MFLAX, we have the
Mm-hmm.
family centers where you can go in and you can talk with chaplains who, everything's confidential. And, you kind of hit on one thing that I did want to make sure we talked about today. When we feel like we've lost ourselves in a move,
Mm-hmm.
anytime that you go through any type of grieving process, you're experiencing feelings, you're experiencing thoughts that you're not sure. And you know what? Any transition that we go through puts us at risk for an identity crisis. And one of the things that we most need, but we don't always get because we don't have that community and those, I like to call them sisters in arms, because we're mostly women spouses here, but brothers and sisters in arms, to talk about what we're feeling, what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
You can get transition counseling and just talk to an MFLAC about it. You can go in and do that. I actually have had to take my children
Mm-hmm.
to do that, especially, Megan, you just shared, when your children get older. Transitions are harder the older that they get, and recognizing early that they just need someone to talk to and they
Mm-hmm.
don't want it to be you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so so that's part of reaching out and asking for help. Recognizing, I think the biggest thing is to recognize I need a little something to keep me doing what I should be doing, because otherwise we can fall victim to the isolation, which is so easy because we have so many different ways that make us feel like we're connected these days, but we're not really. And so I may have gotten off topic a little bit.
No, all good. And you already answered one of my other questions too, which I absolutely love. All of those resources, important to keep in mind, like our children and their transition as well, because sometimes it's not just us losing our identity and who we are, but it's our children losing theirs as well, especially if they go from, if they're very athletic and they're like a captain of a sports team, and now we're ripping them away from that to go to a new team where everybody played together, grew up together, and now they're the new kid, and now they have to prove themselves all over again, and just how difficult it can be for our children as well, and watching out for them and keeping an eye on how they are handling it through the PCS as well. So there are some times when our spouse's orders like to take us to some non-traditional locations, like where I am currently at. Very civilian living here, very odd location. We are one of 3 active duty folks located on the installation. And for the longest time, when we go from big installation to big installation and so on, it's always like, I'm a military spouse, I support families, I volunteer in these organizations. And then suddenly we're at these remote, unique assignments, and all those organizations that we were a part of, they no longer exist. And we are like lost, and we don't know what to do. And we don't know like who we are anymore, or how to navigate, what our identity is, because the spouse club doesn't exist here. PWOC doesn't exist here. SFRG does not exist here because we're one of 3, and like they can talk and disseminate information without big meetings, So how do we kind of navigate this piece where we know our identity, we're used to doing this, we do this at every location, and suddenly all of that is not there because we're at a remote assignment?
It's that you bring up a great point. And some of you who are in the DC area will go, well, I'm in this big area where there's all this stuff, but I live remotely. So I can feel sane. And so whenever you're in those places, that's really where you have to look inside yourself and say, okay, so we get to choose how we, reframe our situation. Are we going to frame it so that, oh my gosh, this sucks, nothing's normal, I feel so out of place? Or are we going to reframe it as, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to try something new, or to find things that are similar, because every community has ways that you can volunteer. So maybe you can volunteer at the local, if you like to volunteer at the thrift shop on the installations, well, maybe you can volunteer at one of the, thrift shops in the area. There's always a thrift shop in almost every single town. And they might need somebody if like you really want a job as, an accountant. A lot of those places need help keeping their books and running. So there's different ways that you can link in. And you mentioned PWC. Well, now you've got to do the whole church hopping thing. Oh my goodness. And then, but there's schools, even if you don't have school-aged children or you don't have children yet, there are still schools that need volunteers. They need all sorts of, help while you're in that process of, finding that job, that perfect job, if that's what you're going to be seeking out. But you really just have to know who it is, what your interests are, and just look for opportunities and take advantage of it. And if you have children, I always like to ask the kids what they're interested in, and then get involved in the things that they're interested in. Because really, there's been some places that we've moved. I haven't really been super remote like you are, but my DC time did feel like I was plopped in the middle of a civilian community, and I was trying to figure out everything. And so I kind of let my kids lead me a little bit. So if they had new interests and stuff, we got involved in them. I know that some people, when they get into those civilian communities, they have things available for their kids that aren't normally available, like different art opportunities and things like that. And also for us, because if you're in a different community, there's different opportunities outside the wall. And one of the things our family always does is we try to make friends with local families. And we're always the one that's taking a local family to do the things that they've forgotten are right there in their backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, that's so good. This is our second time that we've been kind of at a remote location. So coming into it, at least for us, we had an understanding of what life was going to be like. But making friends with those local families, I'll say, is huge, because the last time we were stationed at Fort Leavenworth, one of our friends that came from Indiana, because we were at Camp Atterbury, National Guard post, didn't know it existed until we received our orders there. But one of our good friends, one of our neighbors there, they came to see us on their spring break at Fort Leavenworth, and we got to show them what a military installation was like, and they got to be able to compare it to what they knew of Camp Atterbury, and was just kind of really excited about, for us, it was just like, this is a commissary. It's like a grocery store. And they were just like, all excited about, it just being different because it's on a military installation. So yeah, don't discount those relationships with local families that are there, and also utilize them as a good resource too, because they often know, like, the doctors you want to see when you get referred off post. They know like the good happening spots, the best places to see the fireworks in your town. They'll share those unique little hidden gems with you, and the best restaurants as well. So definitely don't discount those friendships with them as well. One question I love to ask all the military connected folks I have on this show is, what has been one of your favorite duty stations that you've been to, and why was it one of your favorites?
Oh gosh.
Where I am, have several.
I'm gonna have to say, geez, it's a toss-up between Germany and Hawaii.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oconus locations.
Yeah, Oconus locations, and Germany was because my kids were at the right age, and we were able to like let them experience history. Yeah. And put it in their back pocket for when they, moved, when we moved from there, and all the travel that we did, even though my husband was deployed, that he did like a 15-month deployment from there. So it was like the bittersweet location. And then Hawaii, I was in paradise. It was our longest time duty station. We were actually there for over 3 years. My kids really just nestled into the community, and I loved all the ways, all the friendships that we made there, and the opportunities to just grow. And that's my middle daughter cracked me up there, and she's like, Mom, when we moved from there, she goes, I'm now from Hawaii. And I said, okay, you're now from Hawaii. She goes, can I do that? And I said, that is a blessing of a military brat.
Yeah.
You can be from wherever you want to be from, because they always used to say where they were born, which was Fort Benning, Georgia, was where they were from. But she decided, she goes, I figured out who I am in Hawaii, and now I'm from Hawaii. And I was like, okay.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. My children are usually the same way, where when they ask, so we had one location we were there where they were doing the tree lighting ceremony on base, and Santa was coming, and they had one of the local PAO folks doing some interviews with kids and everything. And I feel like he must have been a new person as part of this program, because he was, where are you from? And that's like a question you don't ask a military kid, like, unless you're prepared to get like 7 or 8 different answers. So like each of my kids like rattled off the state they were born in. They're all born in different states. Then they rattled off where mom claims home to be at. Then they rattled off where dad claims home to be at. Then they rattled off every state that we've lived in, and everything. And I was just like, and like the guy looks at me, I'm like, you don't ask a military child where they're from if you're not prepared for this, because they'll just rattle off everything. But I love that your daughter was able to find out who she was and be like, this is where I'm from. This is where, I've, connected with. And I love being able to hear that. And then to wrap us up today, another question I love to ask all of our spouses, because I always feel like there is so much that we can learn from each other. We all have different experiences. We've all have learned different lessons along the way in our journeys. So what is a piece of advice that you would want to pass on to other spouses in our community?
Oh gosh, such a big question. So related to PCS, there's those times when the orders don't come. They're supposed to come. And when you're in that place and you're tired of everybody asking, so where are you going? So where are you going? Where are you going? One time we literally didn't get orders until my husband changed out of his job. And it was leaving from Hawaii, believe it or not. And for over 6 months of I had to choose in my mind what my mantra was going to be, because I could have let that beat me down. I could let that make me angry. Don't let no orders, not getting the orders in the time that you want, um, change your attitude and rob you of your final moments wherever it is that you are. Choose to believe that you're going to go where you're supposed to go. They're going to come in the perfect timing. It's maybe chaotic, but you've got this because you've done it before.
Yes, no, such good words. I always say, whatever happens, it'll make for a great story later.
Oh, yeah.
Waiting on those orders, watching everybody else PCS away, watching everybody else announce where they're going to, and then you crossing your fingers and hoping, like, I hope we get orders there. I want to live near you again. I remember that time. It was so much fun. And then just waiting and not knowing it all makes for a good story later. Such good wisdom, such good words to kind of end our day with today. So thank you for those. Thank you for being here today, Cher. I greatly appreciate you taking time on your busy schedule to join us.
Well, I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity. So I'm going to try and watch when it goes live so I can comment. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And anytime you want to come back on to the show and talk about anything in the world, you're always more than welcome to. I feel like you have so much that you can give our community and share with us. So anytime that you feel like you need to share something or talk about anything, you're always more than welcome to come back and join us.
Thank you. Well, if anybody has any ideas, anything that they, one thing that I talked about and you're like, hey, we need to hear more about that, drop it in there so Megan knows what you guys want to hear about.
Yes, and we will get Sherry back here with us. So everybody else watching with us, we are glad you tuned in and watched today with us. We are hoping, if you're in the middle of a PCS like us, that it goes smooth and without issues and without any hiccups along the way. May it be a calm season for you, regardless of everything else we hear happening. Join us again next Wednesday. I'm going to say next Wednesday because I hope by next Wednesday when this airs that we have our house with goods, that we're in our house, and we've got a show to kind of talk about and recap how my PCS has gone. If we're not in my new house, then you'll see me either live from the car or the hotel lobby. Hard to tell. It'll be a fun story to share later. But join us. We'll talk about that. And until next time, everyone take care.